Good morning, beautiful souls and moms. This is Lauren, your host of the Mind Your Mama podcast, and I am back again with my good friend Emily. And today we're going to start talking about some things that are near and dear to our hearts, such as overwhelm, burnout, and then how to incorporate something that you're passionate about or something that you want to start while you're in the midst of overwhelm and burnout and feeling like, I just can't fucking add one more thing to my plate. But I want to start a business. I want to incorporate health and fitness. But like adding those things in makes me feel like I'm going to shut down and I absolutely can't do it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So welcome, Emily. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I'm so excited to be back here. I have to tell you, I shared our podcast episode I guess I put ours out earlier on mine.
Mhm.
And I got so much great feedback. Everyone really, really enjoyed it. And it made me want to come back and do more. And we had a lot of fun. And my listeners really, really enjoyed hearing just maybe a different perspective than what I normally give on my topic with macro counting and health and fitness journey. So thank you so much for having me back. I'm super pumped to be here. And I love talking about the topic of overwhelm because I was the queen of overwhelm, and many of my clients who come to me with wanting to hit their body goals and work on their health and fitness journey, they are in constant overwhelm. And I love helping to coach women through overwhelm. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, it's just kind of like one of those things where you have these visions and these big goals and all of these things, but they seem so unobtainable because you're buried under layers and layers of crap of things that you have to do, things you think you should do, things that, you know, like aren't that important, but they are important to you in the moment. And it's just kind of like, how do we get women to be able to achieve their goals, whatever that may be? And like I love talking about health and fitness because it's one of those things that so many people, like especially women and moms, like they start but then they fall off because it becomes like one more thing that overwhelms them and seems like it has to be on their to-do list. um and like for me, I just love talking about overwhelm and burnout because I've lived it for most of my life and it was not fun, and just it wore me down physically, emotionally, mentally, like you name it. And I was just depleted in all areas. So, um, what are some things that you find that you like to tell your friends, your clients when they come to you for, we're going to use health and fitness right now, but like, what is something that you teach them on how to still maintain their goals but also not get so bogged down by everything?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Lauren. And I think one, getting started with, let's get clear what overwhelm is. And what I see overwhelm is actually overwhelm is a choice, because when you are in overwhelm, you're making everything a priority. So that means nothing is a priority.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, and I don't always love to tell people it's a choice, but it really is a choice. And one of the things that I have found to be really, really helpful when you start to feel an overwhelm is to take a step back and look at all the things that you're saying yes to, right? Because a lot of times when we're in overwhelm, we're saying yes to everything. And when we say yes to everything, it never leaves us with time to just sit and refill our cup, right? Because we're constantly pouring from an empty cup. And I truly believe that a lot of this comes from societal expectations that have been put on women,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
of our expectations, like what are women expected to do. And a lot of times they have been expected to do all of the things, right? And to say yes to everything. And I find that that's been a big root of why women struggle being in overwhelm, because a big part of that is societal expectations. And back in the day, probably our grandparents' time, women, their main role was to stay at home, right? And then we kind of went through women's rights and women becoming more supported in the workforce. So then their roles expanded, and they were also expected to continue to do the roles at home, all the roles that
Mhm.
they were doing, right? And then now they also had these roles of being a career woman and having a career and working in the workforce. So they just expanded their roles. And so they were expected then to do both, maintain all the responsibilities at home and then also have a career. And so I think a big part of the overwhelm is coming from this deep-rooted belief that we should say yes to everything, because that would make us a good wifey, a good mom, a good woman in general.
Mhm.
And really, the cost of that is leaving us so fatigued and burnt out and really constantly pouring from an empty cup. So I think getting, clear on what overwhelm is and what that looks like and how it's showing up in your life. And also just getting critical awareness of what are the social expectations that we are looking at or seeing, or that was modeled for us as children, or what we see in TV shows and the media.
That's so great that you bring that up because I did an entire episode going back from like the 1950s all the way up to present day, and how it just kept like this pressure was put on women all the time. So, like in the 50s, it was you have to, be perfectly dressed, heels, dinner made at a certain time, raise perfectly good children. And then you couldn't talk about it. And if you talked about it, it was like, well, what's wrong with you? Why would you
Mhm.
possibly be overwhelmed? And then that's when like medication was introduced and it was known as mother's little helper and blah, blah, blah. And I just went through like that whole episode, went through all of that. And I think also for another reason is also to sit back and ask yourself, yes, it is societal for sure, but it's also a learned response, which is something that you touched on. And you have to dig a little deeper and ask yourself, why do I feel compelled to say yes to
Mhm.
everything? Where did I learn that? What happened? What made me think that, like, oh my gosh, if I say no to Karen and I don't go to Joey's birthday party, Karen's going to talk shit about me to all the other
Mhm.
moms because I didn't
Mhm.
go. Like, so is that really true? Is Karen really being a Karen, or is like or are you just making that up? Right. And
Mhm.
I think that we just feel the need to constantly prove our worth because it has been ingrained in us for so long. And one of the things that I like to talk about also is that we don't feel safe saying no. And we
Mhm.
feel so like anxious or bad about it, or like we're going to be judged. And it feels uncomfortable to say no.
Mhm.
And nobody's saying you say no and just say it bitchy and be like, no, I'm not going, but like you can just say no. Like that's
Yeah.
okay to say no.
No is a complete sentence. I
Oh my God, I was going to
actually
say that.
Yeah, I taught that to my husband, because he struggles with people pleasing.
Hmm.
And that was something that I learned for myself, because I found that I was saying yes to everything. And
Hmm.
then I felt so overwhelmed because then I obviously couldn't do it all. And then I would have to, eventually say, "Hey, sorry, I can't make it." And then I didn't love that feeling either, because I was like, well, I don't want this identity that I'm flaky, that I don't like follow through to with my commitments. And so that was one of the things that I really started to become intentional with, is like, instead of automatically saying yes, I'm automatically pausing and thinking about it. And one of my favorite ways to figure out if I want to say yes to something or no is that if it's not an automatic yes for me, or I'm sorry, if it's not a hell yes for me, then it's
Mhm.
an automatic no. And that
Yeah.
has really helped me start to set boundaries and get comfortable setting boundaries. I think that's a really, really important part with overwhelm and how to work through overwhelm is by setting boundaries. Because a big part of the overwhelm that I talked about is if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority.
Right. Love
And
that.
so if we can set some boundaries with ourselves and create a space where we're protecting our energy, then I think there's going to be a lot less overwhelm for women in general. And it is really uncomfortable, especially when we're coming from this yes, yes, yes society, or this yes belief that we need to say
Mhm.
yes. Or if we say no, people are going to talk about us, people are going to judge us.
Mhm.
And to that point, because I definitely, I related to that for sure. That was a big reason why I would say yes to everything. And one of my mentors said this to me, and it just like really hit home for me. He goes, um, if you're still struggling for people, like you're worried if people are going to like you or not, you're too old for that. Get over it. And I was like, okay, okay. But there is truth to that. Like, it's one of those things where people are going to judge you regardless. And
Mhm.
they're going to we're just that's in our human nature, right? And we might judge in a positive way and we might judge in a negative way.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I've really it helped me work through that, the fear of being judged, is that if someone's going to judge me and criticize me, if I'm not willing to take their advice, then I'm not going to take their criticism. And
Yeah.
so, and most of the people in like your inner circle, your close friends and family, the people that you really trust that are, safe for you, if you say no, they're going to most likely understand, right? Or you can have a conversation with them. And so, yeah, it is uncomfortable saying no. Believe me, it is. But the more
Yeah.
that you practice it, the more
Mhm.
that you practice, I like to call it, I've learned it from Brene Brown in her book. I thought it was just me, but it wasn't. The book about shame. It's so wonderful. And she talks about having ordinary courage. And I look for ways to be courageous every day. And that would be a way to have ordinary courage is to do something that's uncomfortable, like saying no. And the more that you do it, you build your tolerance muscle
Mhm.
and you're able then to be able to say no more and it won't feel so uncomfortable like it might not like it might right now, especially if you're used to saying yes.
Yes. And when you set boundaries and when you say no, that opens up so much more space
Mhm.
and time for yourself and for you to be able to focus on the things that you want to do. Like I have these goals of starting a business, or I have goals of becoming a really healthy version of myself. And that ultimately brings you more peace, more joy, more fulfillment because you're working on the things that matter, not the things that drain you. And
Mhm.
that is something that I wish that we all could realize and learn from and implement every day. Because when we're happy and fulfilled and living our best life, our purpose, whatever you want to call it, like everything else falls into place. Your home is happier, your kids are
Mhm.
happier, your significant other is happier. Like, so saying no isn't a selfish thing. It's actually really helping everyone around you and
Mhm.
yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm curious your thoughts on this because I think that a lot of women, whenever I talk to them, they're always so busy. They say they're so busy,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I wanted to go a little bit deeper into that because I have seen that women have this belief, a lot of women have this belief that as a mom, that if they take time for themselves, if they do invest in themselves, invest in pursuing their dreams, in creating their own business, or, simple things like investing in taking time to go for a walk, like a 10-minute
Mhm,
walk, right? And
mhm.
there's a lot of guilt around that. A lot of women struggle with doing that and prioritizing themselves. And I believe they wear busy as a shield to keep them from actually taking time for themselves. And this is the point that I want to make. So, if you have a belief that as a mom, in order to be a good mom, you should put yourself last. And I think that's a belief that a lot of moms have.
Mhm.
To be a better mom, a best mom, you put yourself last, you put your kids first and foremost. And if you have that belief, your actions will align with that belief, because the strongest force in the human personality is to be consistent to who you already think you are. And
Yeah.
so if you have a belief or an identity that in order to be a good mom, you have to put yourself last, well, guess what? Your actions are going to align with that.
Mhm.
And so that makes sense to me why women say they're busy all the time, because if they have this deep rooted belief that they can't take time for themselves because it's selfish, then they're never going to make time for themselves. And they're going to just continue to say yes to everything. It's going to make it really hard for them to set boundaries and say no because of this deep rooted belief.
Yes. I mean, I think you summed it up so perfectly, and I'm not sure what else I can add to that because it's so very true, and I see it all the time with friends, with clients, with even within myself. Sometimes I have felt that I had to just always be busy because it's like, oh wow, look at Lauren, look at all she's
Hmm.
doing,
Hmm.
and wow. But really, what we're doing is we're not honoring ourselves and we're not honoring what truly matters the most. And I keep coming back to, again, it shows your kids. It shows your kids,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
they become what you show them. And you show them that, like, oh, I have to constantly be doing this is how I earn love. This is how I get respect. This is how I get whatever. Like, that is not teaching them anything good, because then the cycle continues and then they
Hmm.
grow up and they do those things with their own families and they're miserable and they're tired and they're depleted.
Hmm.
And it's
Have you
just,
ever have you ever heard your kid say, can I do this real quick? Like, have you heard your kid, like, have you seen your kids? Because I have, and that really hit me.
yeah,
That really hit me that I was like, oh shit, I do not want my kids to always feel like they have to be busy, or always have to be so fast at doing stuff. And I caught myself saying that a lot. I'm like, hold on, I'm going to do this real quick, or let me do this real quick. Or I don't have time, I'm really busy. And then I saw that reflection in my kids
yeah.
from what my kids were saying, and I was like, "Oh no, like I don't want that for them at all."
Yes. Yes. I mean, it's so true. Like, they're picking up everything
Mhm.
that we're putting out there. And I don't think I've heard my kids don't believe in moving fast. So, like,
I love that. That's so fantastic.
they get very, I can tell that I used to be like, come on, come on, come on. Why can't we just hurry up? Let's go. And
Yes.
it creates anxiety. It
Mhm.
creates overwhelm. It creates stress. And trust me, like, I still sometimes, like, sitting down and doing their homework. I'm like, I used to, like, finally, Nora and I would laugh at it, but I'd be like, all right, take your time, but hurry up. Like,
Mhm.
and then it just doesn't make any sense to tell her to
No.
take her time, but hurry up. So
Yeah.
now I'm like, we kind of joke about it that I used to say that to her, but yeah, it's just like, I still get very frustrated sometimes when I feel like they're not moving fast enough, but that's not on them. That's on me and my feelings of, like, oh my gosh, we got to hurry up. We've got to, like, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Like, who cares if they get to school 10 minutes late? Like,
Mhm.
who cares if we don't show up at the party right at 2 o'clock? But I used to think that, well, if I don't do that, well, then, I'm horrible or I'm this or I'm
Mhm.
that. And now my husband's like, God, mom's never on time. Like,
I
I'm not purposely like slow and like fuck it, but like
Yeah.
sometimes I'm just like, you know what? Like I'm showing up.
Yeah. Well, and I
Mhm.
think too, like our and you know so much more about our nervous system, but like I
Mhm.
think sometimes what happens is we go in like our nervous system just goes in like that fight or flight or freeze. And then what I find myself is like when we're rushing and we're hurrying, I have started to just stop and tell myself, like, hey, this is not an emergency and I am safe. Like, and that
Yeah.
has really, really helped because, yeah, I'm like, why am I rushing around? Like, this is not an emergency. We're just,
Mhm.
we're going to our parents' house for dinner or we're going to a kid's birthday party. And yeah, if we're 5 minutes late, I'm not saying that like, I always want that to be a thing that I'm late to
Sure.
everything because there's,
Right.
part of that integrity. You say you're going to be
Yeah.
somewhere at some time, right? Your word is your power, your word has power behind it as much as, you follow through your commitments. But to the point, it's like there's so many times where I'm like, wait, why am I rushing to get to Costco? Or why am I rushing to get to Target?
Mhm.
And I do feel like there's this just, it's part of our culture and it's what like that's what you need to be busy. You should be busy. You're a mom. This is what life should look like. And I'm realizing that it just is not self-serving and it's creating habits for our kids to model too as they grow. And
So
yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, just to the point, this is something that I just started doing, and it really has helped me with like being busy and rushing around. And this was really great too, because this also kind of goes a little bit into mom guilt. So I
Mm.
was coming home from a work function, and my friend called me, and her and we both have kids at the same school, and they were doing a fun run. It was a fundraiser for the school, and it was going to fall over her youngest son's nap time, and that's her time. Like that is her time to just have to herself. And I was just coming home, so I was going to have to rush if I was going to make it to this fun run. And she's like, Emily, I really don't want to go. I'm trying to like talk myself into letting myself do it and be okay with not going and not feeling guilty. And I was like, you know what? If I were in the other shoes, I would be telling my mom friend that it's okay. Like, you don't have to go. You go to so many other things. Like, you missing out on this thing is
Mhm.
totally okay. If this is going to allow you to refill up your cup, and then when your kids get home later from school that day, you're going to have
Yeah.
more energy and you're going to show up better, then yeah, please skip it. And while I had that conversation with her on my way home, I was like, okay, let me do a self check. And I would have had to like really rush. I'd come home, quick eat something, and then rush and run out the door to see my son do the fun run. And I just decided, I'm like, you know what? I'm rushing and this is not really going to serve me. And then I asked myself a question. Do I show up majority of the time for my son? For things that are important to him. I'm like, yes, I do. Is this
Mhm.
something that like I really need to go to? No, it's not. And so I was super intentional. It was uncomfortable for me, but I also then was like, okay, well, if a mom friend is asking me this same advice, what would I tell her? And I'm like, well, my mom friend already did ask me that and I did give her that advice, and so I'm going to take it myself. And so I ended up just kind of taking some time to myself. My husband ended up going and seeing our son, and it was very self-serving. And when my son came home, I was refreshed. I was able to just, ask him how it went. And yeah, so I wanted to share that because that was something that I just newly started. And I also saw it on a reel somewhere and I was like, "Oh, I just started doing that. I love that." Like
Yeah.
if you're going to rush, then like it's an automatic no.
Yeah, I love that. I think that that's so great, and I'm going to try to implement that as much as I can because, like, even like just this morning, I felt like really rushed and all this stuff. But like, what I didn't need to be that rushed, and I just created that chaos like in myself for like no reason. And then when you're stressed and when you're in constant go 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 mode, you see every little thing as a threat, and everything
Mhm.
is like such a big deal when it's really not. And that is something that I totally like work through with women because it's like oh, well, like, why do I feel so sick? Or why do I feel this way? Or why can I not fight infections? Well, because you're like chronically stressed and your body
Mhm,
physically can't because we're not saying no, we're not setting boundaries, and we're just putting too much on our plate. And then what I was gonna say was, have you I call this like the mom battle cry when you go up to a mom and like let's say you're at a party or something, you're like, how are you? And she goes, I'm okay.
mhm,
Like that sigh is just such a cry for like, no, I'm actually not okay, but like I don't think anybody's actually I haven't asked myself if I'm okay, but nobody's really asked me if I'm okay either. So like
mhm,
that that need to feel like, oh, like I have to do it all or whatever. Like you're not even checking in with yourself and you're not even asking yourself, how do I feel today? How do I feel in this moment? And I know it's like you can wake up in the morning and feel like $1 million and then 2 hours later feel like dog crap. And that's normal. Like, but you have to check in with yourself and say, like, okay, well, you know what? Right now, I know I said I was going to go to the fun run, but I'm actually really tired and I'm really worn down and I go to 98% of all the other things. So it's okay for me to skip this. Like, and again, it allows you to be more present. It allows you to be more fulfilled. And then it allows you to do the things that you really want to do. So when I say, like, I want to talk about how we can reduce some of that overwhelm so you can do the things that light you up, that's what I mean. I mean, setting boundaries. I mean,
mhm,
saying no to things. I mean, checking in with yourself. And if that means you have to check in with yourself 5, 6, 7 times a day, then so be it. Like,
mhm.
I read a study that we hold our breaths longer, like the length of an Olympic sized pool, like 5 times a day. Like that'd
Wow.
be like equivalent to you swimming an Olympic sized pool 5 times with how much we hold our breath and how much we're not actually like in our bodies and figuring out like what's going on because we're so stressed and we're running around and we're doing all this stuff. Like that was wild to me.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it's crazy. It's
I
crazy.
think and I wonder and I'm just thinking about when you what was the thing that you called, the breath or not the breath,
The
the pa
sigh,
yeah, what was
the
it? What did
mom,
you call that? The
mom
mom
battle cry.
yeah, the mom battle cry. I like that, and I think that's so relatable, and I think so many women struggle with that, and then they have this inner shame to even want to share what they're truly feeling because
Hmm.
if they share that they're struggling, that they really are like maybe they're not enjoying motherhood like they thought they would, or they just feel like they're constantly failing, or they have like constant mom guilt, all of these things that are probably unwanted identities that women don't want to have this unwanted identity that they're struggling being a mom when they wanted this their whole life, right? And so
Yeah.
I think when we can speak shame and we can share what we're really feeling, I think that it's such a great way to talk to your friends and to bring because shame I'm sorry, I'm really into shame. I love learning about it because I didn't realize how much I would shame myself and my shame triggers. And I realized when I started sharing how I was truly feeling about motherhood and about all of these expectations that I was putting on myself, when I started sharing it, I actually felt relief in that. And when I talk about these topics and I hear other women sharing, say, no, I feel the same way. And I know you and I've had conversations. You're like, no, I totally get that. I'm like, yes, me too. Like, we're not alone in it. And it doesn't
Yep.
feel because when we keep it secret and we keep it inside, we feel like we're the only ones that are struggling with it. But when we're able to share and connect, that's actually a really great way to build shame resilience is through connection and sharing. I think that's why it's so important for other moms to have a group of other moms that we can share the things that we're struggling with and just bring to light the things that we feel shame about. And then when we realize we're not the only ones, we're like, oh, okay. So like we are normal. Like we aren't crazy. Like this is something that a lot of women will struggle with or think about. And, you know, speaking shame and having connection with other women that you feel safe to share that with, I think is just really, really important too, especially when it comes to wanting to set boundaries and help work through that overwhelm, right? Because when you can like talk to your other friends and they're like, no, I feel the same way. I also struggle with saying no. It's like, oh, okay, well, we're in this together. You know, like I'm
Mhm.
not the only one who is struggling with that. So I think that's just like another kind of way to help work through the overwhelm is that you're not alone in it. And there are ways that we can work through it and come out the other side.
I love that you bring up like connection because one, obviously, like we're not meant to do this alone. And
Hmm.
we're not meant to be on some island all by ourselves, like waving a flag. Someone come help me. We're better when we work together. We're better when we are helping one another and supporting one another. And that not only does it make you feel less alone, but it also makes like your whole body is at ease, which means your cortisol lowers, your adrenaline lowers, you're able to breathe through a little better with just simple connection and not
Hmm.
feeling like oh my gosh, nobody is going to understand what I'm saying and I must be crazy. And there are many cultures out there that's how they function through motherhood, and they have these deep community ties and bonds with one another. And I mean, they do so well because they don't have to have it all figured out by themselves.
Hmm.
And the connection piece is huge, and it's all about finding the right tribe of women where you, like you said, like you can feel safe saying the things that you want to say and you're not going to feel judged. And it's about just finding a place where you can be at peace with whatever. You can throw out some wonky ass shit and be like, all right, well, great. I said it and I feel better. And you can let out that mom battle cry, that sigh, and then people are going to support you and surround you and lift you up
Yeah.
and tell you, no, you're girl, you're not crazy. Like, hello, I've thought some pretty horrible things about my kids too, or hello, I
Hmm.
didn't bathe Johnny for a week because I couldn't do it, like it's
Yeah.
just like
I know. Yes, that's really cool that you said that there's cultures that are really deep into that connection, and that is
Mhm.
so important. And I do think women do a pretty good job at creating connections. I think that's just how we work
Mhm.
through our problems, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just sitting in the silence. Sometimes I feel like with Kevin, I want to talk out my problems and he just wants
Yeah.
to fix it. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like we need to talk this out. We need to like really think about this. And he just wants to go into fix it mode.
Into fix it mode. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I know we wanted to talk about like overwhelm and when we want to like work when we want to do other areas like improve in other areas like our health and fitness and starting
Mhm.
a business, and if we're already in overwhelm, like what do we do? And one of the things we talked about was like setting boundaries, which I think that's such a great start. Really like protecting our energy by saying
Mhm.
no to more things so that you can say yes to others, especially if you do struggle with people pleasing, right? Like
Yeah.
if you struggle with people pleasing, it's like, okay, well, I'm actually saying no to this so I can say yes to something else. So you're still able
Mhm.
to say yes, just in something that probably is going to serve you a lot better. And one of the things that I have found in both business, like creating my business, and also in reaching my body goals and my health and fitness goals, is that a lot of times when I felt overwhelmed, I was just really confused because I
Yeah.
was hearing so much conflicting information in the health
Yes.
and fitness industry and also
Mhm.
the business industry, right? Like social media, you have so many influencers telling you do this, do this, do this. And then someone else is saying, no, do this, do this, do this. And you're like, what the F am I actually supposed to do? And so there is a lot of, I think, confusion that leads to the overwhelm. And we end up trying to do all of these different things, like throwing spaghetti at the wall. I think we talked about that before, is like
Yeah,
throwing spaghetti at the wall. And then it just leaves us even more confused and then just in constant overwhelm. And so I think if we can kind of declutter all the noise and just start if it's in like health and fitness and you're wanting to, do you have a specific goal, Lauren, that you want to work on in health and fitness? We can use it as an example.
sure. I
Okay.
want to be able to cut down on my carb intake because I love carbs. And I want to be able to work out at least 4 to 5 times a week.
Okay, fantastic. So
Hmm.
we're gonna, well, I'm gonna keep it simple. We'll start with we'll do the exercise episode example.
Uh-huh.
I'm a carb lover myself. I love carbohydrates. And just like as a side note, carbs are not bad for you. I
No,
know
I
that,
know,
and
but
I know that,
some.
I know you know that, but there's like just like this huge stigma around carbohydrates, and
Mhm.
carb phobia is a real thing. I'm not saying that you have that, but I also love carbohydrates myself. But we'll keep it simple and we'll start with exercise. So your optimal goal would be to exercise 4 to 5 times a week. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic, Lauren. So we know that you're not going to start there because that is optimal. And whenever we go from like, maybe, are you currently exercising now consistently, or is it like
Well, I
stop
just
and go?
restarted.
Okay, so you just restarted. Okay, fantastic. Okay. And I've seen this for the last 10 years as I worked as an exercise physiologist. And there's these common trends. And when we go from not exercising to jumping in and we go right to optimal, then most of the time, if not, it's going to lead to burnout. Because whenever we have to white knuckle something, it's going to lead to overwhelm,
Right.
and it's going to lead to burnout. So your optimal goal is to exercise 4 to 5 times a week. Fantastic. I'm not going to have you start there. So what I would do is I would encourage you to think about what would feel sustainable for you, that you could do this long term. What could you do that would feel achievable for you? So you think about all your constraints. We all have constraints, right? Kids, time, work. There's always constraints. What would be achievable within your constraints, right? That you can work within them. And then the last part is what would be enjoyable for you. And that's such an important part because so many times I think we have this belief that like the more exercise sucks, the more that it's really hard and intense and you're a sweaty mess and you're always sore. That's actually better. And it's actually not. It's complete opposite in a lot of times. And so if you can ask yourself and build your exercise plan around what would be achievable, sustainable, and enjoyable, and I love to sum it up with what would feel light and easy for you that you're not already doing, and it wouldn't drastically change your current lifestyle. So, 4 to 5 times a week is where you want to be. We're not going to start there. So,
Mhm.
how many days a week would it feel light and easy for you to start?
I think like 1 to 2.
Okay, fantastic. I love that. And that's more than what you're doing currently, right? I
I
know
mean,
you
yeah,
just
besides
started,
this
but
week, I
yes.
did 3 days this
Yes.
week, so
Okay.
I'm proud of myself.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. So if it's even 1% better than you were yesterday, and you can stay consistent to that, you're going to be able to build lasting habits. And so I love that 1 to 2 times a week. And I love the range that you give yourself. So that can also help with perfectionism, all or nothing mindset that sneaks in
Yeah.
just because the
Mhm.
way our brains are wired. So I love having a floor goal and a ceiling goal. So your floor goal would be 1 time a week. So bare minimum, come higher hell water, your booty is doing some sort of exercise, right? And
Yeah.
then the 2 times a week, that would be a little bit loftier. It's still within the sustainability, achievable, and enjoyable. So that would be a ceiling goal. And so at the end of each week, you take a look and you look to see, like, hey, did I hit this goal or did I not? So you did it 3 times already this week. So at the end of the week, when you do a debrief, you can say, yeah, damn, I hit this goal, right? Fantastic. And you celebrate that. You celebrate
Mhm.
that win. And then next week you can decide like, hey, how did that go? Was that, fairly easy for me, or was that still a little bit of a struggle? And if you find that like, hey, I'm still newer in this, then you can have that same goal until it becomes something that you don't really have to put much thought into, or you don't have to
Yeah.
use that much motivation to get you
Mhm.
to do it.
Love it.
So
So
that's my, yeah.
uh,
I know I put you on the spot on that one, but I was just
no.
trying to think of an example, like a real life example, because when we're in constant overwhelm, there's just a lot of confusion around that, and there
Mhm.
is there is this deep rooted belief that perfection's required. Perfection's required to be successful in your exercise routine, and that's just not actually true at all. And so when you can take messy action and test it out and see how it goes, then what do you get? You get clarity, because at the end of the week you set a goal and you test it out. At the end of the week you get clarity. You see what worked, what didn't, and then you apply a new strategy. If it didn't, you learn the lesson that was there, and that's what's going to help build the confidence, and working through the overwhelm is clarity.
I love that you say that. And yeah, because so like I don't know, I feel like I'm just going to repeat everything you just said because it was so perfectly put, but
Well, we're just so in sync, Lauren,
we are.
that we just like read each other's minds.
It's literally like we share. And it's like, it's so true. It's like that's what was that saying? I know we've all heard it. Like you basically it's like, you have to work super, super hard if you want to amount to anything, right?
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, what's the point of working if you're not going to give it your all and you're not going to,
Hmm.
white knuckle it through all the way to the bitter end till you're depleted and exhausted. And like that was something that was instilled deep within me. And it was like our family saying was Howard's never give up. And I mean, sure, I like it, right? Like, and it
Yeah.
sounds good, but like at the core, it's like, well, then you got to hurry up. You got to be the best, and you have to keep going until, you are the best. And that is something that I feel like we put so much pressure on ourselves, and we have to constantly prove to ourselves that we're capable. But really, like that underlying or that belief is just a story, and it's just something that somebody else put on you because you're inherently worthy and you've always been worthy. So even if you want to work on your business and you only do it, not only, and you do it one day a week, that's better than
Hmm.
99% of the people. So I don't want women to feel like, oh my gosh, like I want to start a business, but that means I'm going to have to work an extra 4 hours at night. And you see, reels and memes and people working all night long, and then they get up and they go to school or they go to work, and it's like exhausting. But I don't know where I was going with that, but it's just like it doesn't have to be that way. And I think it ties all back in beautifully to what you said in the beginning. It's a choice,
Hmm. It
right?
is absolutely. And when what you said about like the working harder, if that was actually really true, then
Right,
every person that you know who works their ass off would be super successful. And that's not true.
right.
I know a lot of people that work really, 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 really hard, and they're not where they want to be, or they're not as successful
Mhm.
as they want to be. And so
Yep.
then we know that it's actually not true. It's not 100% true. And so
Yeah.
we know that that's a belief, and a belief is a thought. And you get to decide if a thought is true or not. And so essentially, you just poked holes in that. You poked holes in that belief. And I remember you said, I think it was our last episode, how we can pivot. We're not
Mhm.
married to it. And I
Yeah.
think that's so, so important. It doesn't mean because we changed our minds that we're out of integrity, or that we failed, or we didn't try hard enough. It's like, no, actually, things changed. I changed, and we're supposed to change. And if you set a goal and it doesn't really land like it used to, that's okay. And I think that's so important to give ourselves permission. And that doesn't mean that we failed and or that we suck or we didn't try hard enough. And I saw a meme the other day that I really loved. And it must be like caterpillar season right now. I don't know if there's a season where you just see more caterpillars or not, but I
Mm.
see them on my walks like every day. And maybe it's because it's just in my head too that I see
Yeah.
this meme. But the caterpillar says to the butterfly, "Hey, you changed." And the butterfly says, "Well, we're supposed to change." And
Yeah,
I
I
think
saw
that's
that.
just so
Mhm.
beautiful. And and that's to the point that it's okay if we change our mind, and it's okay that if we tried this out and it didn't land the way we thought it would, that we can always pivot and we can always choose to make a different decision.
Yes. And that does, like you said, doesn't mean that you're a failure. And I think that we get so in our heads too much about, well, I've been saying I was going to do this for the last 6 months or a year, and now I'm changing, and now it's gonna appear that I'm a failure, and
Mhm.
everyone's going to say, "Oh, look, Lauren was going to do this, but." And she talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, and now she's doing something completely different. And one, you have to stop caring what other people think. Like at the end of the day, like who gives a fuck? Please stop caring. And then two, it's like it's okay because I went through and I did the messy action and then I got clarity and I got
Yes.
to know what was good and what wasn't and
I
I
think that's so important
it's
too
so important.
with starting out a business, right? Like you and I,
Mhm.
we've had so many conversations and we're like, what's our who's our avatar? Like who's our ideal client? Who do we want to serve? What's our niche? Like, and really it's you find that through taking messy action, and that's how you get the clarity. And so at the end of the day, overwhelm, and ladies, I hate to say it, and it was a trigger for me too when my mentor first told me this, but overwhelm is a choice. It really is a choice. And when you are trying to prioritize everything, nothing's a priority. And so just start to get some clarity on what is your priority, right? Like I actually made a list of some things. I'm like, okay, what are my values? Like what are things that I
Yep.
really want to value, and I didn't even know what they were. And so I started looking at where I invested my time and money, and that is where you'll see your values. And when I realized, I was like, "Oh man, like I don't know if I like where I'm investing my time and money." And when I started looking at things that I really felt that were important to me, that is how I was able to start to prioritize the things that were really important. And I started letting go of the things that weren't, or delegating. I love to delegate. That's like one of my favorite things.
I know I had
Delegate.
such a hard time with delegating. I used to think like one, I worked in the ER for a while, and it was like, you had to do most of it yourself. If you were lucky, you had a couple good techs and like they would help you and do whatever. But then there were like the nurses that the techs would be like, "Oh my God, I might as well be the nurse. I'm doing everything for her." And I never wanted to be seen that way. I was like, "Oh my God, no, I
Mhm.
value you too much that like I don't want you to think that about me. So I'm not going to ask you to do anything." And then I would be crying and had kidney disease and all this other
Oh
stuff,
my
and like
God.
just not good. So delegating, asking for help, surrounding yourself with good people, prioritizing yourself is not selfish. Like it's just not. In fact, to me, the most selfish thing you can do is not prioritize yourself because then you're not showing up how you really truly want to in other areas of your life that's important, whether it be your family, your work, your friends, like whatever's important to you. So pour your cup. And I hated that saying. I hated
Was
self
that such a
care.
trigger for you?
Oh, it
I know.
was. It was like get some self care. I used to
Yeah.
cringe and be like, fuck self care. Because then it felt like, oh, well, I have to be the one to do this and I have to be the one to do that. Blah, 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 blah. And I was too much in my head, too much in my ego, and too much like not thinking. of any ways to make it not about how I had to do extra in order for me to have
Mhm.
self-care. Like, so you have to do it. Like it's a non-negotiable. Like I look at it now as even if it's 5 intentional deep breaths a day, that's better than nothing. And it's actually really grounding and really brings you back. And I can focus better. And you just, those are some of my big takeaways. Just take care of yourself because it shows up physically in your body, it shows up in all areas of your life. And then you've gone 60, 70 years and you look back and you go, what the fuck? What?
Mhm.
Like, that's not what I wanted. And yeah, like, yeah, I had kids and I did all the things, but like at the end of the day, like, I, that's not what I wanted to do. So I don't know. I just think it's so important to reduce your overwhelm so you can focus on the things that really matter to you and you'll open up so much more space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so here for the breathing, Lauren. I'm totally here for the breathing. I used to be like, what? Breathing, poo, what's that really going to do? But it really does. It
Mhm.
totally helps. I breathe every day when I'm in it with my kids sometimes. And then I'm trying to create a safe space for them to have their feelings. And I'm breathing to work through it. And they get mad at me. They're like, stop breathing. And they're crying more because they're
Mhm.
just, but it really does help. Just like when I do notice overwhelm, I just take a couple deep breaths and then I say, this is not an emergency. I am safe because I mean, 9 times out of 10, are we really in an emergency? No, but it
No,
feels that way in our
it
brain and
does.
our body. It feels like this is a threat to our survival. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm all here for breathing. And I love that. I love that that's part of your self care, even if it's 5 deep breaths a day. Like, that's so fantastic. I'm here for
So
that.
I have a funny story. So this morning, I have 3 kids and they go to Catholic school, so they wear uniforms. And Nora, my oldest, just couldn't find any of her gym uniforms for the day. And I'm like, "How did you lose your gym uniform?" Like, I have no idea. So she's freaking out. Then my son couldn't find his sweater that he had to wear. So I'm like, "How did you lose your sweater? Like, you wore it yesterday. What happened?" And I'm losing my mind, right? Like I'm just like, "Jesus Christ, what the hell? You guys are bleh." I'm losing it. My youngest, who is 6, she comes up into my room and she goes, "Mommy, I think you need a whale breath." And I'm
Oh
like,
my
"I don't want to do a whale breath."
gosh.
And she's like, "Mommy, I think you need a whale breath." And I'm like, okay. And then I did it with her because I've taught her that she was able to come to me and be like, "Bitch, settle down. You need to breathe. Like you're
Oh
not
my
in an
gosh.
emergency." And
Yeah.
I felt so much better after just literally 3 big deep breaths and just letting that all go. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't care that you don't have your sweater. Like, and I don't care that, Nora, you're going to wear your brother's gym uniform today and you're like 4 inches taller than him and you've got floods. Like, it
Yeah.
is what it is. And it was such a powerful reminder of one, what we're teaching our children, and two,
Yeah.
like, I got to practice what I preach because in that moment I was like spiraling.
Yeah. But that's such a beautiful moment that you had with your youngest. Like, and the fact, like, to me, that would be like, okay, I'm on the right track. Like, the fact
Yeah.
that my daughter recognized that this was
Mhm.
an appropriate time to do some deep breathing
Mhm.
is, oh my gosh, that's like everything. That's such a huge mom win. That's
Oh, thank
amazing.
you. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is such a huge mom win. I love those kinds of wins because I think that's why we do the things that we do, why we aspire to be better and to learn and
Yeah.
grow because we're moms and we want it better for our kids. And so that's such a beautiful moment that you had.
And like, I don't want any mom to feel bad, right? Like, I'm not saying like, we're not saying like, "Oh my gosh, you are saying yes to too many things and you're doing this and that means you're a bad mom." No, that
Mhm.
does not mean you're a bad mom. And that does not, mean that you need to completely stop everything that you're doing, because we do these things out of love and we do them because we want to show our kids, we want them to have a better life than we did. And that I never did anything when I was a kid. My mom was a single mom and she worked really hard and, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I harbored a lot of that. And then I took it into my parenting journey and I was like, well, then I got to do everything. But really, at the end of the day, like I don't want anybody to feel like I'm shaming you and being like, "Oh my gosh, you're so bad and you're overextending yourself." But what I am saying is that you don't have to. And
Yeah.
just because you say no to something doesn't mean that you're a bad mom.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we shame ourselves enough, right?
Mhm.
And we don't have to do that to other women or to each other. And I think what you're doing, Lauren, is you're just planting seeds and you're creating some awareness and opening eyes. I didn't know any of this stuff a couple years ago, and
Yeah,
once I
me either.
started learning it, I'm like,
Mhm.
wow, we need to share this. Like, we need to
Mhm.
share these insights. We need to share this with every woman who's willing to listen because of how much these types of tools and mindset meditations and all of the things that we've been learning the last couple years, how it's really changed us, and how it's like you said, like just with your daughter and how you had that moment. And so I think that's just so beautiful. And the last thing I've just realized, I don't know how long your podcast episodes are, but this has probably been
Normally not this long.
not this long. Okay. But the last thing I do want to say, since we're talking about parenting, and this is something that I got from uh, uh, Raising Good, what is it? Raising Good Humans with Dr.
Yeah.
Eliza. I love her.
Mhm.
I learned a lot of great parenting from her. And one of the things that has really helped like take the overwhelm off my shoulders with parenting is that we always get do-overs. And what's so important is the repair. So like when we
Mhm.
do lose our shit, because I still do sometimes, and like we
Yeah,
might
I
not
mean, we're
always
human.
have our 6-year-old to remind us to do whale breaths, right? Like, and that's okay. And what's so important, what's so beautiful in that is that we can then go to our children when we do something that we weren't proud of and something that we didn't want to do and we ended up just losing it, and we can go and we can have a conversation and we can own it and we can apologize. And one of the
Yep.
things that I'm super intentional about is like I don't apologize with a but. I own it and I say,
Mm.
"Hey, mommy is really sorry, point blank. This
Yeah.
is how I wish I would have shown up." And then I share with them how I wish I would have done it differently. And so it's teaching our kids to take accountability, to
Yep.
own it, and
Mhm.
also teach them that perfection is not needed. Like that
Right.
it's okay to make mistakes, because in our failures is when we get to really learn and grow. And so that has been a huge really weight off my shoulder and has really helped me with parenting, is that we get do-overs and the most important is the repair. And if
Yes.
we do that, it will be just fine.
It'll be just fine.
Just dandy.
Well, I could go on and on and
I
on, but I we need to cut it. I think
yes, we do.
we can do
We
that
need to cut it off. Yes.
another
Cut me off, Lauren.
time. But I just, to all the women and the moms that are tuning in today, thank you so, so much for listening. Please share this podcast episode with a mom who needs to hear it. You can follow Emily on Instagram at take it away.
Yes, at M's Empowerment Coaching. That's with an EMS.
Hmm.
M's Empowerment Coaching on Instagram and Facebook. And yeah, hit me up over there.
Awesome. And then you can follow me on Instagram at Lauren Trout, RN_coach. And linked in my show notes will be a free guide to how burnout shows up in your body, why your doctor probably missed it, and how to fix it. And yes, please like and share this. And I will see you later, ladies. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.
Yes, thank you.